Hi everybody, Rachel here from Rachthestamper.com. It's been a while since I've done a pre-recorded video, but I was watching a video the other day and they were showing something with basically using a very neutral cardstock and coloring on it. So you can do this many different ways, and you can also do this very simply by stamping with black ink onto a colored cardstock to give the appearance of color if for some reason you don't happen to have the coordinating color. But the nice part about Stampin' Up! Is all of the colors do coordinate. So this is Sahara Sand. So the Sahara Sand ink does coordinate with it. I did use black just to give a little bit more contrast, but I think this would also be as equally of a nice card if you did it on crumb cake. I think anything darker than that, if you did soft suede, it would be just a little too dark. And then honestly, for this card, I only used, I think it's just six watercolor pencils. Now, these watercolor pencils do come in packs. There's watercolor 1 and watercolor 2. There's lots of colors, but I kind of limited it to this. I have 2 different blues. So I have Balmy Blue and Pacific Point. So these are 1 out of each of the sets. I also have Crushed Curry, Cajun Craze, Early Espresso, and Granny Apple Green. You could use a darker green if you wanted to, but I just kind of went with these to brighten it up a little bit. So I thought this would also be a really simple, it's very simple. This is a 1-layer card. I'm going to do the second version, what I create with you, as a 2-layer card. The only thing I'm doing is changing up to put a 4 by 5.25 inch layer onto a regular base. So I have that all ready to go here. But that's pretty much the only thing I changed about it. But this is a really simple card with 1 layer, very, very minimal supplies. I am using Memento black ink. And this ink is great for, I don't want to say watercoloring because you can't really watercolor with it, but I actually have just a blender pen, which really kind of softens the colors a little bit. But this was a super simple card to create. This would be a great thinking of you card. And it's funny because I was getting out some of my retiring stamp sets, and this is one that I think I will keep forever. I absolutely love this stamp set. I love the dock and the boat. And they are kind of together here, the way they've laid the images out, but thinking of maybe some people who might not have anyone right now, or maybe they're having just a bad time with things, I thought this was really nice. Just the lone boat with the here for you. Very simple. I kind of made mine. So instead of making this like a grass edge that this side was the grass, I actually made this kind of like a beach. And I'm not sure if you can see or not, but I just drew a little faint line with my watercolor pencil. And then I softened it a little bit with the blender pen. And then up here, I kind of gave the illusion of grass, but this could kind of be beachy as well. It just depends on what way you want to go with it. So to start, just going to move this out of the way. I have pretty much everything done. So I have a piece of Sahara Sand, 4 1/4 by 11, scored at 5 1/2. So that's already ready to go for our base. And I'm just going to reinforce this really quickly so I don't have to do it afterwards. And then a layer, which is 4 by 5 1/4, and it's just going to layer directly on top. Now, this card base is so light, you don't really have to have an inside layer, so it's kind of up to you. I'm not going to add one for this one. We're going to stamp on this piece to start. So basically, all I did was open my ink. And the only thing you want to make sure is that when you're using Memento Tuxedo black ink, that it's really well inked. We do also sell an ink refill, and it does last a really long time. But if you ever notice that you're getting a little bit lighter, you might want to re-ink it because you do use it a lot more, I feel like, than you realize. So I'm going to go ahead and ink my boat first. And when I ink my boat, I'm just looking at it to make sure it's inked. Another way you can do this is by laying your stamp flat and then just tapping across it. And then we're just going to center this. That looks pretty good. And with the water, I just kind of added in some various water lines. So you can kind of do that however you want. I did turn them around as I did them. And I'm not going to do the top parts until I decide where I'm putting my shore. I'll just turn this one. And I'm just going to set, that's a little bit light, but it's okay. It's not going to really make a big difference. Now for my shore, you can see this is a pretty small piece. So what I actually did is I stamped this twice. So same thing again, I'm just going to ink it. Make sure I like what it looks like. And I kind of wanted it to come around. You can make it as tight of a curve or as long as a curve as you want. So you could make your shoreline so it would be really considerably longer. So let's do that for this one. And if for any reason you have a little spot there that doesn't match, you can always, which this was a total accident, but you could always take your Stampin' Right marker and you could kind of just make yourself a little bit of a shoreline. Nobody's going to tell. And quite honestly, you don't really have to attach the two, but I just put a little teeny bump there. So that's good enough. And then the final thing I'm going to add is our sentiment, which I chose Here For You only because I kind of thought it was a really good Here For You for so many different reasons. So I just want to make sure that this is really, really nicely inked, because the last thing you want to do is go to all that trouble and then this ends up being light. So I'm going to just stick with putting it in the lower left corner. Okay, just like so. So that is pretty much all that we have there. Same thing again, if you wanted to with this little teeny piece here, you could kind of make that carry off if you felt like it, just whatever it is that you want to do. So one other thing I forgot, I wanted to add a little bit of kind of to give you like the waves were coming up, but I didn't want to make them like they were going with it when everything else wasn't. So I kind of kept them straight. I guess if you wanted to, well, that one got a little bit extra. I guess if you wanted to, you could probably have curved this all along. So it just kind of depends on what you want to do. And I'm going to leave it. I just have that one in there. I think that's good enough. We're going to go with the less is more approach. So I'm going to move all those out of the way. So basically everything from here is just coloring. Okay, so when you have your blender pen, these come in packs of 3. They are reusable. You can see some of my tips are a little bit discolored, but they still are clear. When you're finished using them, the only thing you want to do is just make sure that you rub them onto a paper until they are clear again. 2 things to tell you. I do have one that I specifically use for white because it's kind of permanently stained with the white craft ink that we sell. So this one is white. And then I also have one that I designate that I use only for black ink, because basically, you can see here, it gets so dark at the end. It's kind of hard to get this one isn't really that bad, but sometimes it's kind of hard to get the black pigment out of it. So this one is just my black, and actually at the other end I had white, but I probably forgot and made a second one. But they do come in packs of 3, so they're really great value. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick something to start. So again, for my Granny Apple Green, this was kind of me saying that there were like some beach-ish grasses, and I added kind of like some seaweed touches here for these little pieces, because you know you always see little pieces of seaweed if you go to any shoreline. So you can change this. It doesn't have to be that way. And if you wanted to, you could even have your shoreline coming from the bottom and then the boat sailing out. But I kind of wanted the feel to be as if the person was sailing to someone. So that's kind of why I went with that. And the cattails, we are going to color brown. And I kind of just went just a very small edge. It doesn't have to be for the whole thing to show the grass or the edge of the water, which is also why for this one you can see I did kind of start with the grass and then I blended it up a little bit. So I'll show you how to do that in a moment. But this was just a little darker spot here that I blended out with the blender pen. So you really don't need a lot. Okay, so I'm going to put that one on the side. And then I believe I did the rocks in Cajun Craze. Just going to bring those in. So it's kind of like little pebbles at the shoreline. That's pretty good. All right, the biggest thing I probably did, and you could do this with daffodil, but I didn't want it to be bright yellow sandy beach, because if you're at a lake, typically the sand isn't really a pretty sand. It's kind of more of a mineral colored sand. So I went with crushed curry, which was kind of just the right amount of yellow. And I just kind of decided I was just going to really loosely bring this in. It's not a lot of yellow, but you can kind of see where the sand is, or the edge of whatever shore it is you're painting. It's not really super specific, as you can see. And then we can go in and soften that a little bit with our blender pen. So we'll do kind of everything at the same time. So for the water, it kind of depends on what you want to do. If you want darker water, I just went along and traced the lines. And I will bring just a little bit. There's another, you could also, if you don't want it so dark, you could also go with Balmy Blue, is a little bit softer. Just bring a little bit in between there. And then the other thing I did was I kind of made an edging of where I thought the shore would be, where the water would be. And it's really just me drawing kind of a loose water lap area. So it's nothing specific. Just being really very, very general, okay? So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to do the boat last. I'm going to go ahead and do this first. And I also forgot I need to do the cattails too, so hopefully I'll remember. I'm going to do the water edge here, and I'm just kind of very gently going in with my blender pen and just softening the edge of that water just a little bit. If you want it a little bit darker, you could go with your Pacific Point because Balmy Blue is a teeny bit light, but again, we are not really striving for a dark blue here. This is kind of one of those less is more kind of coloring situations. And then I'm just going back with what I kind of touched from that and just drawing out the water just a little bit. Okay, so there's that. So I'm just going to clean my pen off. You can see on the paper. Now I'm going to go in with my curry. I'm trying to kind of avoid the green because I don't want to mix those two together. So I'm just being very gentle and selective with my sand coverage, I guess is the best way to say it. I'm going to just soften my rocks a little bit. A couple that I missed, I can add a little bit of stuff into. Again, in case you missed it, the rocks were in crushed curry. No, not crushed curry. Cajun Craze. Then we can go along the edge with our green. Just kind of soften that up a little bit. I don't really want a grass effect. Kind of want more so the beach. The beach or the shore, kind of like the seaweed feel. So I'm going to close this up just for a second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my espresso and do that cattail. And then same thing, I'm just going to kind of soften this a little bit. And the blender pen kind of lifts up some of the ink, so you can almost make it a little bit softer if you want to. All right, so the way I did the boat was, I did the boat with, oh no, it was not crushed curry. I did it with Cajun Craze and early espresso, but I'm going to do the early espresso first. So I'm going to bring in the dark. So I'm kind of coating the entire rim of the boat with the espresso. And then I'm going with any of the really dark shadow lines, again with the espresso. Just a little bit there, kind of following this dark line here. In a little bit, where did I go? Over here. Kind of brought it down just slightly. I didn't really give like a whole depth to the boat. I kind of wanted to go with a really soft color for the boat. And then I just did a super light. So you can see I pressed really firmly, and I'll bring this up so you can see. I pressed really firmly around the edge, and then here I'm just doing really light pencil lines. So just to kind of bring a little bit of color that I can soften later with my blender pen. And I am trying to stay with the grain of what I'm doing. That makes sense, or I guess the direction. And then finally, now I'm going to go in with the Cajun Craze, and I'm going to add a little bit of this, which is kind of like a reddish brown, to just a couple spots. And these will mix together, and they'll really make a nice color. That looks pretty good. I don't want to be too much. Okay. So again, I'm just going to make sure this is clean, and I'm going to start with the darker, kind of dark. I'm just slightly blending it. And you can kind of pull your ink together, and it will almost bleed the two colors together and create a new color. And then what I did was I even went out of just a little bit, so you would have kind of the reflection of the boat in the water, just because I thought it looked really, really authentic that way. And I kind of just thought of this in my mind, what I thought it would look like. And then one other thing, if you ever want to, because you can see this one is significantly lighter here, I didn't go quite as dark. If you ever want to make something a little bit darker without using the pencil, you can also take your blender pen and just dip a little color. It is going to be darker, but you can dip a little color and add back in. That way it doesn't give your paper really natty. And then you can also, if you wanted to do it the other way, you can go back in and just add a little bit of dark. Now, when your paper is still a little wet from the blender pen, sometimes you might get a little bit more streaking. So just make sure you go back and just kind of blend it out. Now, you don't want to use a watercolor brush with this, okay? This is I believe it's a glycerin. So I just want to show you one other thing real quick. So you're just going to clean this out until you pretty much can't see. So even with using brown, I could go to a lighter color now and blend, and it should not have any transfer whatsoever. But what I was saying is, this is like a glycerin based blend, which it is not water. So that's why it blends really soft without, without making the paper all torn up and I guess like fuzzy edged is the best word I'm going for here. So I'm going to do just a little bit more. So what I'm going to do for this one, just to make it a little bit different, is we'll kind of add a little bit of beach color up here. Just being super light with my pencil. I feel like there was there was a frog, but I don't really want to add a frog. I don't think that's going to add anything to it. What we can do is we can add, let's see, I know we have another dark green. We can just put a little bit of, like a little couple grassy spots with garden green. We'll see what that looks like. Okay, so I'm going to go with my blender pen once again. And I'm just going to kind of softly blend that beachy area first. I'm really avoiding the green because I don't want to cross the two colors. Okay, I'm just going to soften the edge of this just a little bit because you don't want it so starkly dark. I don't really know if I love or don't love that right now. We should just kind of left it as it was. Kind of blend that one in. That one I did a little bit of blobbing with. So, I'm not really loving what I did with that. We can always try to add, so we can pick this pigment up and maybe add a little bit more of like a sand or a rocky kind of feel to it. Add just a little something. I don't know. We'll have to see how this goes. I think I might have now at this point taken it to a place I can't recover from, but that's okay. That's what happens when you do something on the spur of the moment. There's some very strange rocks on this shoreline. Maybe you do want to avoid this shoreline, but so just to wrap this up. So again, this one was a 1-layer card. You can see there's nothing else to it. But just to step this up a little bit, what I'm going to do is, where's my liquid glue? I'm going to glue this down. And then I'm going to stamp just a little something on the inside of this card. So, just like that. There's some strange plants growing here. I don't want to touch it too much because I'm going to smudge it. So, there's that. And then again, if you wanted to, you could always add something on the inside. Let's just add this little bird because he's kind of not too much. And what we can do is we'll stamp him. We can kind of add a little sky feel. Okay, so we're going to give him a second to dry. Okay, because you do also get, there's lots of colors. I have both sets of watercolor pencils. I really, really love both of them. I don't always use all of them at the same time, but here it is. I was looking for my white. There also is white, which is great to color with. So I'm going to go with white, and then I'm just going to add a little bit of Bermuda Bay kind of around the bird to give just a teeny bit of a sky feeling. So let me move this over. I'm going to give him just a teeny bit to dry. Not anything, we don't really want anything like hugely specific. All right, and then we'll add, so this will be like a seagull or a bagel. Get it? Hopefully you get that. Me and my bad jokes. All right, and I think I had black. There it is. I'm just going to add just a little bit of black. Okay. And now, even though I know I'm using black, I'm going to still use the same blender pen because I'm not using black ink. So I'm just going to spread that sky just a little bit to soften it up. And then just a little bit with the, I don't want to make this too muddy. So I'm really just kind of softening the white. I didn't really do much at all to the black portion of the coloring. So again, I used Bermuda Bay for that. So this looks much better. Don't do that. Just leave your little shoreline as is. I'm gonna have to see if I can find a way to maybe wait for this to dry and see if I can soften it away. But this one looks like I started and then a 2-year-old took over with drawing these crazy little creatures. This one looks really good. I did a great job in the beginning. Again, less is more. You don't really need all that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this quick tutorial. And if you don't already have these watercolor pencils, they are available in my online store. You can shop there 24/7 at Rachthestamper.stampinup.net. I do have a host code. So through the month of April, any purchase that you make, if you use the host code, which is on my Facebook page and my blog, but if you use that host code, you will earn a free sample 6x6 sample of DSP. I have lots of DSP that I need to use up because it is all retiring and I just have not had time to use all of it accordingly. So I'm trying to give away some of that, share a little bit of love. So any $50 or above purchase will get at least one of those packs of DSP. So I thank you guys so very much for all of your support. If you would like to leave me a comment about this card, which one is your favorite? I think we know this one. Do like the inside of this one though a little bit. But which one is your favorite? Maybe what you would or wouldn't have drawn up in the comments here. And if you're new to my channel, I would love for you to subscribe. All you have to do is click the subscribe button and then make sure you turn on the bell for notifications. And you may want to set it to all, because if you do what is kind of the default, which is custom, it kind of only tells you when I'm live. It doesn't tell you when I do pre-recorded videos like this one was. I'd love for you to give me a thumbs up as well. And if you have a friend that you think would enjoy this video, be sure to share it with them. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you again real soon.